What's going on, everyone? Before you scroll, before you click away, give me just a moment of your attention, because what's happening around XRP right now isn't loud, it isn't flashy, and it's definitely not being explained clearly. And that's exactly why it matters. Most people are watching the surface, reacting to charts, reacting to headlines, reacting to emotion, while the real story is moving quietly underneath. If you've ever felt like the market makes moves that don't make sense, like price reacts late, or not at all, or completely opposite to what everyone expects, you're not alone. That confusion isn't accidental. Markets don't exist to explain themselves. They exist to function. And when you understand that, your entire perspective starts to shift. Right now, XRP is once again sitting in that uncomfortable space where nothing looks exciting on the surface, but attention behind the scenes is slowly building. That's usually when patience gets tested the most. People want confirmation, they want signals, they want certainty, but markets don't hand those things out in advance. XRP has always been different from most digital assets. It wasn't built to entertain traders, it was built to solve a specific problem that still exists today: inefficient global value transfer. That problem didn't disappear just because prices move sideways. Banks still move money slowly. Cross-border payments are still expensive. Settlement still takes time. Those realities haven't changed. What has changed is the environment around them. Regulation is evolving, infrastructure is modernizing, institutions are no longer asking if blockchain will be used, but how it will be integrated. And that's an important distinction. Adoption doesn't start with headlines. It starts with conversations, testing, compliance, and risk management. Most of that process is invisible to the public. That's why judging progress purely by price action leads to frustration. Price is the loudest signal, but it's not the most informative one. It reflects sentiment, not preparation, and sentiment is often the last thing to align. In the United States especially, financial systems don't move fast. They move carefully. Every decision passes through layers of review. Every integration is tested. Every risk is evaluated. This isn't exciting, but it's how real money moves. XRP exists in that environment, not in theory, but in practice. Another thing people often misunderstand is time. Retail investors live in the now. Institutions live in the future. When those two perspectives collide, price action feels irrational. But from a long-term viewpoint, what looks like stagnation can actually be positioning. There's also the psychological side. Markets are designed to extract emotion. Fear creates selling. Excitement creates buying. Both create volume. Volume creates liquidity. And liquidity is what the system needs to function. This doesn't mean anyone is out to get you. It means the system responds to behavior, not fairness. XRP has been through cycles of extreme attention and near silence. Each cycle leaves behind stronger infrastructure and clearer positioning. That kind of resilience doesn't show up on a chart. It shows up in survival. Surviving scrutiny matters. Surviving regulation matters. Surviving years of doubt matters. Many projects never make it that far. When people talk about updates, they often expect announcements that instantly move price. But real updates don't always look like that. Sometimes an update is a framework becoming clearer. Sometimes it's a regulatory environment stabilizing. Sometimes it's institutions becoming more comfortable with an idea they once avoided. Those changes don't happen overnight. They happen quietly, then suddenly. Another critical point is automation. Today's markets are dominated by algorithms. These systems don't read news emotionally. They respond to data, liquidity, volatility, and structure. Price movement is often the result of triggers being hit, not narratives playing out. That's why news and price don't always align. XRP's liquidity profile keeps it relevant in this environment. Liquidity allows efficient movement of value without extreme slippage. For any asset meant to function as a bridge, that matters more than hype. The market doesn't reward being early emotionally. It rewards being early structurally. Understanding what something is designed to do gives you an edge over reacting to what it's doing right now. This is where many people lose patience. They assume nothing is happening because nothing feels exciting, but excitement is not progress. Progress is often boring. If you're still here, take a second and hit the like button. It helps this kind of grounded content reach people who are tired of noise. And if you want more updates explained calmly, make sure you subscribe. Now let's talk about perception. XRP's narrative has shifted over time. It moved from hype to controversy to cautious evaluation. That evolution matters. Assets that survive long enough eventually get judged on function instead of emotion. That doesn't guarantee success. Nothing does. But it changes the conversation. Global finance is slowly modernizing. Faster settlement, lower costs, better transparency. These aren't optional upgrades anymore. They're requirements. Systems that can adapt to those needs will stay relevant. XRP was built with that reality in mind. Tomorrow's market move won't define this story. Neither will next week's. Long-term systems don't reveal themselves on short timelines. The real question isn't what price does next. It's whether the original problem still exists and whether the solution still makes sense. And right now, both answers are yes. That's why attention keeps returning. Not because of hype, but because the conversation isn't finished. And where that story really deepens is when you stop looking at XRP as a short-term market asset and start looking at it as part of a much larger system that's still being built. Most people never zoom out far enough to see that system clearly. They judge everything by immediate reaction. Price up, price down, excitement, disappointment. But systems don't evolve on emotional timelines. They evolve on structural ones. One of the biggest misconceptions in crypto is that adoption happens publicly. In reality, adoption usually begins privately. Conversations happen behind closed doors. Pilot programs run quietly. Integrations are tested without announcements. By the time the public hears about something, the decision-making phase has often already passed. This is especially true in finance. Banks, payment providers, and institutions don't experiment in public. They test internally. They evaluate risk. They move carefully because the cost of failure is high. XRP's design makes it suitable for that environment, not because it's exciting, but because it's predictable, fast, and efficient. Predictability is underrated. In markets, predictability doesn't mean price stability. It means system reliability. Institutions care less about volatility and more about whether something works consistently under pressure. XRP has been operating for years without downtime, without congestion, and without the scaling issues that plague many other networks. That operational history is easy to ignore if you're focused only on price. But from an infrastructure standpoint, it matters a lot. Another layer people often miss is incentive alignment. Financial systems don't adopt technology just because it's innovative. They adopt it because it saves time, reduces cost, or lowers risk. XRP's value proposition sits directly at that intersection. Faster settlement reduces counterparty risk. Lower fees reduce operational cost. Efficient liquidity management improves capital allocation. These aren't exciting ideas, but they are powerful ones. In the United States, financial modernization is a slow process. Legacy systems are deeply embedded. Change requires coordination across institutions, regulators, and technology providers. That creates friction. But friction doesn't mean resistance forever. It means transition. XRP exists within that transition phase. What frustrates many retail participants is that this phase doesn't provide constant feedback. There's no daily confirmation that things are working. Instead, there's silence. And silence creates doubt, but silence can also mean stability. Markets often confuse activity with progress. High volatility feels like something is happening. Sideways movement feels like nothing is happening. In reality, both can be misleading. Some of the most important structural changes happen during periods of low excitement. Another important concept is optionality. Institutions value options. They don't commit fully until they need to. XRP's presence in the conversation gives institutions an option. They can test, evaluate, and prepare without making irreversible decisions. That alone keeps it relevant. People often ask why price doesn't reflect this relevance. The answer is simple. Markets price expectations, not preparation. Preparation only becomes visible when expectations shift.